like radiators have a safety valve to let out the steam, the hot air, so that it won't explode, capitalism also has this so-called safety valve, or many safety valves. One of the main ones is domestic violence and sexism. Many men go to work every day to try and make a living for their families and are frustrated because of capitalism. They don't get paid as much as they can, their boss treats them poorly, they can't provide for their families, they have no real say-so in terms of how to improve the workplace or the job that they're doing, and therefore all of these frustrations build up. The easiest way for these men to release their frustration is to take it out on their wives or their girlfriends at home. And that's where domestic violence comes in. This serves the capitalists well because if men understood that it's in their class interest to unite with their female counterparts, then they would organize against the ruling class to overthrow the system of oppression under capitalism. But instead, because of the lack of class consciousness, men take out their frustrations on women, and it messes up their relationships that could possibly blossom into something very beautiful. I recently went on a walking tour in the Lower East Side. What I found out in one of those walking tours was that many men in the neighborhood at the turn of the century, many of the families had come over from Europe. There was a huge Jewish population in the Lower East Side. And when they got here, many of them had to struggle to find employment. And at the height of the Depression, many men either physically abused or totally abandoned their families. And that was documented to go hand in hand with the idea that since these men could not provide for their families, which was what men are supposed to do, supposedly, then they would rather, like I said, take out their frustrations or just totally abandon their families because they were not able to live up to their manly duty. This just goes to show that capitalism really is the root, class society is the root of violence against women. 3 to 4 million women are battered by their male counterparts every year in the United States. This is just an example of how much domestic violence really is part of capitalism's culture. Capitalism forms really unequal human relationships. These human relationships are based on oppression and violence and coercion. Take the war in Iraq and Afghanistan as an example. There was some recent cases where 7 U.S. soldiers returned from duty in Afghanistan and within a few months of being home murdered their wives in a brutal way, either by strangling them, burning them, or shooting them. So basically, these type of human relationships that are taught under capitalism of, there being different classes, somebody has to be on top and has to be powerful, are internalized by us, by people, and in different degrees are played out in our daily lives. And children who grow up in families where there is abuse going on or where there's inequality going on between their parents grow up thinking that this type of relationship is normal or is natural. If we take a look at how domestic violence or violence against women in general is going to end, it really won't happen until we end capitalism and class society. And the only way to do that is with a communist revolution. Once everybody feels like they are contributing to society in a positive way and that they're being fulfilled in their jobs and in their lives, then this horrible violence against women that's perpetrated every day will end.
I was reading a story. It was about a hunter-gatherer group, and in that hunter-gatherer group, when his wife complained, this guy was leaving the camp to go visit a girlfriend, and his wife complained he was taking the blanket with her, and so she grabbed the blanket. He started hitting her, but as soon as he started hitting her, other people in the group jumped in and said, no, you can't be hitting a woman like that. And so the group had a way of taking care of these kind of problems. The way capitalism makes violence against women so much worse, it seems to me, is it develops a culture that says that men should be tough, they should knock people around. There even is the idea out there, which I know I've heard from people, which is, you don't hit your woman, how is she going to know you love her if you don't hit her? So that kind of thinking is out there, which does seem to me it can only come from a sick society like capitalism. In other societies, that kind of anti-woman behavior will be suppressed by the group.
At school, one of the things we read is an article that came out of the New York Times, which talks about how a ghetto is formed. And one of the many things, as it says, is that as jobs go down and the ghetto kind of environment starts to build up, one of the things that also rises is domestic violence. And I would put in there, it's not just violence against women, it's also violence against children. That, you know, men feel that we have to somehow release this anger. And nowadays under capitalism too, it can be violence against men. I mean, violence comes into the house. Definitely one of the major forms is violence against women, but violence comes into the house in lots of different forms because of the economic and political situation.
I just want to add that I don't want anyone to misunderstand what we're saying about this, to think that we're letting perpetrators of violence off the hook. In other words, I think that we also have to struggle with men on an individual basis to not beat up their wife and kids.